Hello, everybody. Uh, let's wait for a couple of more seconds and let's begin. In the meantime, feel free to share with us where you are joining from. And if you have any particular questions or topics you would like to talk about today, then feel free to write them in a Zoom or in this link. And we will try to address your questions today. Okay, I guess maybe we can start. Are you ready, Joanna?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, thanks everybody for joining today into our amazing session. And the topic today is designing your UX career. It will be more of the fireside chat, and I will be your host today. So my name is Mevrael, and I'm independent um, UX product management consultant, and I usually work with early stage startups across different continents. And here with me today is Joanna Tiliano. She is an amazing UX manager at UiPath. And so, yeah, maybe you want to tell us a few words about yourself and introduce yourself?
Definitely. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. It may be that some of you, or maybe I even know you from UX Goodies. I think this is what I'm most prominent for right now, the UX Goodies project, which is actually an Instagram profile that turned out to be pretty successful when I launched it, and where I've tried my best to put free good UX education, democratize some of the UX concepts for everyone. And so that's, I think, what helped me build a community around me and meet so many nice people and probably get this invitation here. Otherwise, probably we wouldn't have met. And so, yeah, I'm the mother of UX Goodies. And of course, in the background, my actual UX career, I've been a UX designer for 7 years now. I've worked with big companies mostly. I've always had like a full-time job. And I've also done on the side projects with some startups, some consultancy work, and all things UX in general. So I have pretty much a diverse perspective on the UX process and building a UX career. And I hope that I'll be able to share as many valuable insights with you as possible tonight.
Lovely. Thanks, Joanna, for introduction. And thanks everybody for joining into this ADP List session about designing your UX career live, maybe a bit of product management and many other cool topics in between. So first of all, let's meet those who don't know about ADP List, tell you a few words about it. And so first of all, ADP List stands for Amazing Design People List. And are we here amazing design people, Joanna?
Sorry? Yeah,
Are we
I think
here,
there are
amazing
many
design
amazing
people all
design
here,
people.
right? Lovely. So, and ADP List is democratizing mentorship in design, like product management, development, and related fields for all. And it is free and it's amazing. If you are looking to jump into UX field, into design or product management, product development, ADP List is an amazing place to connect with the great mentors from all over the world working for best companies or freelancers, entrepreneurs. And you can really be maybe in the middle of the nowhere where you don't have access, and opportunities, job offers to work for a big American corporations. But on ADP List, you can just click a few buttons and book a session with every mentor you can find there you like. And then hopefully you will make few friends and learn something new and maybe even find an amazing job. So welcome and thanks ADP List for organizing this amazing session today. So yeah, I guess maybe let's begin with our topic. And our topic today is about designing your UX career, designing your life. But before maybe we will jump into conversation, let's maybe do a little bit of warm up. And so first of all, everybody who is continuing to join, feel free to share in chat where you are joining from. And if you have any questions, any topics you would like to talk about today, feel free to type them in the chat. And in the meantime, let's think about that. So, Joanna, maybe for Europeans, it's not so strange, like for many people, maybe in North America, Africa, and Asia. But when it comes to Roman culture, like Latin culture, usually everybody has these four countries, coming into their minds: Italy, France, Spain, and Portugal. But what Romania has to do with Romanian kind of name and the culture?
Oh, that's an interesting question. And history is not my strong point, but I do know that we're actually all Latin countries. So Romanian, and we both draw our ancestry from the Roman Empire. So that's, I think, why we're called Romanians. But yeah, I do know, I am very confident about the fact that the Romanian language is a Latin language. And in that, it's pretty similar to Italian and for some parts to Spanish as well. So that's why, for example, when I travel to Italy, I understand everything they are talking. And it's the same, pretty much the same in Spain. So that's a huge advantage if you're an avid traveler like I used to be before the pandemic changed my habits. But yes, definitely, we do have that in common. I think we all draw from the Roman Empire, which was pretty much all of Europe, I think, at some point in history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks, Iona, for clarifying this, because very often people do forget that Romania, even if it's kind of a bit far away in the eastern parts of the Europe and Balkans, away, from the Italy and anything else, it's still part, of this Roman culture and heritage. Even if it was influenced, by Slavic culture and language quite heavily in the last 1,000 years, but it still is under the branch of the Latin languages, right? Okay, perfect. So let's jump into conversation and start talking about designing our lives around UX, and how to be happy, how to figure out what to do, and how to later we'll talk about how to structure in a more professional and strategic way the job hunting in the UX field. So first of all, Joanna, so we talked about this previously, many young people today, they do struggle to figure out what to do. They, go to college or go into these boot camps, get degrees, certificate, but then they still struggle with figuring out what to do or getting the job. So what's your take on this?
Well, this question is calls for answers that could probably take up all the conversation because I've been heavily immersed in this problem space for the past couple of years. First through UX Goodies, and then by designing and launching my own UX bootcamp. So it's pretty much what I've been doing. I've been talking to people that were either recently transitioned into a UX role or they were planning to transition or going through a transition at that moment. So I really try to like explore and unpack all the pain points, all the struggles, or all the suffering that comes with a career change, or even with like building a new career in UX design straight from college. So definitely this is my favorite topic in the world at this point. But I'm gonna try to be brief. From all the research that I've done, talking to people in order to like design this bootcamp in a way that it solves some of the pain points of UX education out there, I've learned a couple of things. And I would say that the main struggle for people who are aspiring to build or to pursue a UX career, their main struggle is figuring out how to start and navigating the sea of options, the ocean of information that's out there, and the overwhelming amount of even options when it comes to UX education. And I think that they first have to overcome the struggle of choosing whether they should go pursue formal education at university or maybe go for a boot camp or maybe even just an online course, and how are they to go about this decision. And I think it's pretty frightening and sometimes paralyzing because it feels like a huge decision. And I feel like people don't have enough information or enough clarity because of all the marketing that's happening out there. I think they're even more confused when where they should be helped. And so I think this is one hard point, choosing what type of education to pursue. And then, of course, all educational opportunities in UX designs facilitating a transition have their pros and cons. So that's
Mm,
also an difficult choice if you want, because
mm.
either way you trade something off with whatever with whatever with whichever choice you make. I
Yeah,
managed to finish that line.
lovely. Yeah, I totally agree with you on this one, and that it's really not about education or certificate. It's more about, yes, your passion and just doing what you love, but in the same time kind of still finding, combining your passion and what you love with what the world needs and where you can make good amount of money at the same time, right? So, and talking about this one, so it reminds me, about this Japanese principle of ikigai, which is exactly about finding, what do you love, what you are good at, what the world needs, and where you can make some money. And I literally, not so long ago, seen on LinkedIn, like somebody who was searching for a job and got like many different job offers at the end. And this person organized anything in a more professional way in a spreadsheet and using something like, let's say, a RICE prioritization score, which stands for reach, impact, confidence, efforts, or you just adjust this to your personal goals and life. For instance, this person had like some family values. I want to be maybe close to my family. I don't want to travel a lot. Or the weather, location, maybe working remotely is more important for me. And then you have this different values, just to think to yourself about what is it you want to do in your life and what are you looking for in the next job. And then you create some kind of structure and add some scoring. And then you will be able to prioritize and see in this way what is it you can actually do and why, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a very interesting way to go about this process, if you want, in this mathematical way,
Yeah.
in a more, let's say, in an organized manner, in a structure. I feel like that's how you actually get yourself to answer the important questions about yourself. I think this is the value in using these types of frameworks, or any type of exercise that invites for self-reflection. I think the most important part is that it helps you ask important questions. And this is something that we also encourage our students at the bootcamp. After talking to many people who have been transitioning, we've learned that it's really important to invite people to self-reflect, to reflect on their goals, on what kind of industries they see themselves in, what kind of job would be fulfilling, what are the important things, just like you said in the right prioritization matrix. Is family important? Is having free time? Is having like multiple gigs, working on diverse projects? What is important for me? So I think that everybody, before any type of effort, of transitioning effort, and even while transitioning and even beyond at any stage in your career, I think that it's valuable you create a space in which to sit down with yourself and ask these questions around what would make you feel that you have a meaningful career, that what type of work do you want to do, how much work do you want to do, and stuff like that. And also, who are you, I think, in essence, because even for ikigai and these types of concepts and the entire philosophy behind understanding who you are, I think the main goal is to like UX yourself, if you want, apply the UX process to your own understanding and be able to articulate and bring to consciousness what is valuable for you, what is important for you, what makes you happy, what makes you feel like you're doing something that's worth it in the end.
Mm. Yeah, indeed. Like when you said, apply UX kind of thinking and process to yourself. So since I do more of product management rather than UX research, and after I've become a PM, I really started looking into myself like a product, which is always like in better version. There's always something to improve in ourselves, right? And now I use all this real product thinking, prioritization scores, and approach to really design my own life and what I want to do next. Okay, perfect. So let's now talk maybe more about UX career and specifically. But before we jump into that one, I often see, especially when it comes to job descriptions, people always put this UX/UI together. So what UX actually is all about, and what's the difference between UX and UI?
It's a very hot question still. I think that for many years now, even when I joined UX design, this question was still something that polarized the industry. And I'm very surprised that 7 years later, it still hasn't been solved. So it's still polarizing and producing all sorts of different answers. My answer around the difference between UX and UI is that they're not necessarily a versus type of relationship. They're parts of the same process. They fall under the same umbrella. And I think because I'm a UX, that I come from a UX background and not a UI background, or I'm more inclined to do UX research and the discovery work that goes into UX. I probably, maybe I have a bias, but I do feel and believe that UI is actually a part of the UX process. So you try, UX solves problems, right? This is what it does. And UI is the way in which you solve the problem of representing the solution. So to be more specific, you set out to solve a problem with the UX methods, techniques, with the entire arsenal that UX brings. You unpack that problem. You understand what the problem is. You understand if you are solving the right problem, or maybe you should go for another problem that's more relevant, that's more important. And then UX helps you figure out whether you're solving the problem right, so you're solving it in the right manner. And so UX does all these, and UI is a part of actually representing the solution in a way that's usable, that's delightful for the user. So UI has to do with how the design solution is brought to reality in the form of components, interactions, and the entire experience, if you want. So in my view, UI is part of the UX process, and you really, I can't see how. I think there are some examples, but most of the times you can't see UI without UX, even if it's bad UX, or UX without UI, because most of the times we're talking digital products. So I think they're just like very close together, but there's a difference. I would hate for people to understand that being a UX designer means just building pretty screens or doing, I don't know, some eye candy design with no function, with no problem that's being solved, and posting that on Dribbble, and that's UX. That's not UX. UX is solving problems. I hope I didn't bring more confusion to the question.
Yes. No, I really like your take on this, that you think that UI is under umbrella of UX. And yeah, I think it is more true than the false. However, I would say, to maybe clarify this for especially beginners, the main difference I see between UX and UI is that, as you've said, UX is definitely more about research, discovery. It's about architecture, designing flows, customer interviews, really understanding problem also from business perspective, and try to find a way how we can solve customer problems in the way which works for the business. But then all this research, information architecture, all these complex diagrams, they are just useless if you cannot take them and actually move this now to the next stage into UI design, which brings some physical appearance to your user experience. Okay, lovely. So let's talk about now getting into UX. So let's say I may be a fresh graduate student or 30, 40 plus, professional with a lot of experience, but in a different field. And now I want to get into UX. So what will be your structured approach for that?
Again, since I've been in this problem space of transitioning to UX and UX education in general, I do have some very articulate ideas about how to transition, or what would be an optimal structure that you can put in place for yourself to be able to facilitate a better transition. I would say that to any effort of switching your career to UX design, you'll need a couple of ingredients. From all the research that I've been doing, I feel that those ingredients are definitely having theory, knowing the theory or exploring the theory in some way. I would say that going about this effort completely unstructured is a good way to fail. So I wouldn't say just read random articles or just read one book or two books. I think that you need some structure to that theory, and that structure could be either by pursuing some sort of education, an online course or whatever, or by just talking to senior designers that can like help you understand what areas you need to explore on a theoretical side, like the process, understanding a bit of research and the research methodologies, understanding interaction design, understanding visual design, and so on. So you will need a plan for learning the theory, but the theory is like, if you want, it's probably not the most important part. I think the other parts, two parts that are even more important than theory, are practice. So you will need to just practice, build experience, and be able to apply every theoretical concept that you learn, apply it into an actual project or a design exercise of any sort, or a research exercise, or whatever that is. You will need to have practical experience. Otherwise, it's really hard to learn something in a vacuum. It's really difficult to just read about, I don't know, whatever interaction concepts without playing with building them and putting them to use. So definitely you need the theory, but you need the practice even more. And I think that another key ingredient that came up again and again and again in the interviews we've been doing with the people who were transitioning or just recently transitioned into a UX role is mentoring. So mentorship is essential in the, I think that ADP list does a great job democratizing mentorship. I think this is why we called our UX bootcamp Mento, because again and again it goes, mentorship seems to be the key ingredient to a successful transition. And I do understand why. After all the research that I've been doing, it's because it's really hard in the beginning, not only to hold yourself accountable and to stay on your learning path and to feel encouraged and to feel supported. That those are some things that mentorship brings, but another important thing that you can't create for yourself is critical feedback, is being guided and being corrected where it's the case, and basically learning from someone or having someone challenge the work you've been doing, and making sure that the concepts that you've read about are correctly implemented, or you're asking the right questions when you're solving a design challenge, and so on. So the role of a mentor is, I can't overstate how important it is in a successful transition. So I say, by all means, if anybody in the audience is contemplating a transition to UX design, go on ADP list, even reach out to me, do whatever you feel most comfortable, but make use of all the mentorship opportunities that are out there, because it's the most important part in a successful transition. And you need all three of them, in my view. So you need the theory, you need practice, definitely, absolutely, and you also need a mentor.
Yeah, I totally agree here. 100% that, theory, some practice, those basic skills today, you can just learn easily for free yourself by just Googling, YouTubing, right? But then it all comes down to certain discipline, accountability, mentorship, because when you learn a new skill, let's say like in martial arts, you don't know if you practice it correctly, and there is nobody to, course correct you or give you a real feedback. So feedback is definitely what makes a difference. And yeah, I totally agree with ADP list is doing an amazing job for that one, to exactly fill the last gap in this equation of those three parameters which you need to have in order to be successful, not just in the UX, but I mean, formula is exactly the same in absolutely any other fields. Okay, great. So talking about different fields, and now maybe more about attributes rather than skills. So skills, those things you can just learn, or somebody can teach you, while attributes are more like, maybe like certain design sense, fashion sense, like customer kind of sense. Something what you have, maybe you can develop it. It's not something that teach you. And it's not like you can read the book and get strong body, for example. You have to grind and gym. In this case, you have to develop these attributes. So in your opinion, what attributes and what skills are needed in order to succeed in the UX career?
It's a great question. I feel that definitely the hard skills, the technical skills can be taught, or anybody can essentially learn them. So, for example, I don't believe that there's somebody in the audience or in the design world contemplating a transition to UX design that will not be able to learn Figma. Everybody can just watch tutorials, have someone to guide them, practice in Figma, and eventually you learn that tool. I think that's not the hard part. The harder part is exactly like you said, having these attributes, or let's call them soft skills, or let's say, yeah, I think that attributes and soft skills pretty much cover what these qualities, if you want, might be. And I think that here is the more painful part, if you want, because like I said, hard skills you can learn them, but these soft skills you have to, like, sometimes even build them the hard way, or they're not as clear, or sometimes you're not born with them. For example, maybe you're not very comfortable around communicating and presenting your work and advocating or articulating your design decision. Maybe that will not come natural for you, but you'll have to keep practicing, exercising these skills, because they're essential for a UX designer. So you will need to be able to present your work and to advocate and convince people that the design decisions you've made are based on whatever rationale you have at that particular project. So this is one example. Another very important skill that I think designers need to build is critical thinking. I do feel that the design process is something that can very easily derail at many given points in the UX process, and I think that critical thinking always comes in and gives this, let's say, neutral perspective on the problem that's being solved. In essence, what critical thinking does is that it tries to uncover the truth at any given point. So you need, as a designer, you need to constantly stop and reflect on what you're doing and make sure that there aren't, I don't know, biases interfering with the design decisions that you're making, or with the way that you're interpreting research data, and so on. So critical thinking is also extremely important. Communication, like I said earlier, I think collaboration is core, because UX designers, even even if they're like the design team of one, or they're working like in isolation as a freelancer, they're not actually working in isolation. They have to collaborate with their client, or they maybe have to collaborate with the developers once they're doing the handoff of the design work, design solution. So collaboration is something critical as well. And yeah, just listening skills. If you want to do research, if you want to be a UX designer, that also goes, because sometimes it may be that you will be working with a research team or with specialized UX researchers, but in many roles you will have to do it yourself, and you have to foster a listening attitude towards your users, and be able to hold yourself accountable for your biases, or whatever you might bring that interferes with that process as well. And so I think there are some things that definitely are core to a successful career in design. And even if you don't come in with them, I think that you need to at least acknowledge the weak points that you have, and your strong points, your strengths, and so always continuously try to improve and fill the gaps, if you want.
Indeed. Yes, attributes are definitely way more important than skills, or the soft skills versus hard skills. So you addressed a lot of these soft skills, and let's say when it comes to hard skills, what is, let's say, in your UX toolkit as a UX professional, and especially now, other than just UX professional, as a UX manager, I don't know, project management, some UX analytics, discovery, some kind of techniques and tools. So what's in your UX toolkit?
Well, I think that this question doesn't call for a one-size-fits-all answer. I think that for me and for every designer out there, like designers like to say, it depends. So, but it very much depends on the project you're in, or in the setup you work on, the team components, and so on. So I think that, but pretty much you do need a process, and that process is not like you go on the internet and find what's the best and search what's the best UX process, and then that's the process and you use it forever. The process is, like I said, very much dependent on the context of that particular challenge. And I think that especially in the first years of your design career, you might not be as able to adjust and be flexible around the process as you become with experience. But you do need a process at any given time in your career. And when I say you need a process, I don't say you need to go through the stages that we see in this picture perfect frameworks that are on everywhere in images
Like double
on
diamond, yeah, something like this.
Yeah, it's not like that in real life. The UX process is rarely, if never, linear. It's a
Yeah.
non-linear experience. You go back and forth. Some things take longer than so. It's just that those are you have to treat them like maybe a North Star or something that's informing the way you go through the design challenge, but it's never as it's nicely portrayed in those frameworks in real life. But with that said, I do believe that you need to be intentional. You need a process in the sense that you need to be intentional at every point of the design challenge you're solving. So just improvising randomly from one point to another will not get you anywhere. You do need to start off with a plan that you try to commit to, or a set of goals, definitely. Or yeah, having goals at every stage will help. So you do need to go through a, let's say, traditional sort of path. Like first start with the problem, try to unpack that problem, try to understand what you don't know about the problem, what you need to find out, and so on. And then definitely, like, let's say we're on the double diamond right now, we diverge in the problem space, and we try to get as much information in around the problem and try to define that problem as good as possible and understand if that's the problem we want to solve. Or maybe we have another problem that makes more sense or is more valuable. And so you do want to have intentionality at every stage of the design process. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. I think that it depends. I think that at every stage and in every project, you will need to have a set of goals and a set of activities, or let's say stages that you go through. But that varies in based on any. So it varies based on the project, if that
Yes,
makes sense.
yes. Yeah, it depends. Is I guess a very common question. Like response, answers any kind of question, right? And yeah, I totally agree that you have to be more open-minded and flexible. It's never about particular framework or approach. And in my experience, one of my favorite and like very powerful quotes in modern times is from Atomic Habits, which was about something like a book about something like we do not rise to the level of our goals, we fall down to the level of our systems. And these systems, these tools essentially shape us. And you might have ambition, goal, like all that stuff. You might be very smart, but if you don't have strategic approach, these very basic operational things at the bottom, you will never achieve these big goals. Okay, so let's maybe now switch our discussion from talking about UX to now talking more about job hunting in the UX, or from your side, I guess, hiring in the UX. But I guess in most people here, it's about the first one. So let's say from your UX manager's point of view, what is your hiring philosophy and like process? What do you look at in candidates when you are hiring UX people?
Well, again, I don't want to be annoying when I say that it depends, but that's the only way that I can answer this question. It depends. It's very much dependent on the role that I'm hiring for, or in general. I think when we discuss any hiring, when we try to unpack any hiring process, um, or what a hiring manager might look for in a candidate, it varies based on the role that they're hiring for. So in my case, for example, most of the job openings that I was hiring for were very much for maybe mid to senior UX designers that were pretty much a generalist in terms of UX skills. And so this is what I've been looking for, people that can like take a design challenge and solve it end to end if you want. So this was something that I was looking at, and but these were the roles that I was hiring for. But definitely it's very different if you're hiring like for a UX research role or a UX writing role or a UX strategy role or whatever. I needless to say, for a management. So the differences between hiring an individual contributor versus hiring a manager, design manager. So I think that in terms of what skills the hiring managers are looking for, it depends on their company's challenges, the product, and so on. But generally speaking, what I've always looked at, and I think I will always look at, and I assume, I'm not sure, but pretty much I think I've uncovered that to a level of confidence. I think that most people also look for a good attitude, which may sound a bit cliche, and yeah, everybody wants a good attitude in their team, but I think that that's important as a designer, because designers also have this, let's say, facilitation role. They have to bring everybody at the same table. Product managers also do that in a way, in a very strong way. But designers also have this responsibility of figuring out what everyone needs from that project: the business needs, the users needs, the product managers needs, the developers needs, and so on. So they do have to be good collaborators, and they have to have I wouldn't say necessarily positive attitude, but a good attitude. So I think difficult designers, it's a bit like it doesn't really, it's a contrasting description, right? So we probably seen difficult developers, and that's okay, because they really need to do their job in a silo many times and maybe just collaborate with the product manager or the designer. But difficult designers, I really can't see how they would do the job right. So so definitely attitude is something important. And like I said, the other soft skills that we've been discussing, that they're good communicators, good listeners, that they have critical thinking skills, that they are able to articulate the solution, the design decisions they've made in a particular design solution, and so on.
Yes, like you previously said, it's definitely more about the soft skills, communication, and it's definitely design is all about clear communication. And if you're not really great at it, you don't have this right attitude, even if you're a world-class, or I don't know, Christian Dior, like designer kind of, without soft skills, it doesn't matter, right? Okay, so what now? So let's talk maybe about portfolio. So, and I think most of people here are more in junior kind of level who want to learn more about UX and get into UX. So maybe we can focus more about this one rather than senior and managers level. So let's say when I apply for a job, I send resume, Behance, LinkedIn, my websites, and my portfolio. So when it comes to UI or visual kind of design, portfolio there is very clear. It's beautiful, it's visual. But how the heck does a UX portfolio looks like? How do you present research, business results?
It's a very good question. And to be completely fair, I'm not the best person here to answer it. I see that Sarah Duty is in the audience. Hi, Sarah. She's actually the most brilliant person I know that talks about UX portfolios and how to build a portfolio. So you should definitely check her out for portfolio in-depth questions. Hey, Sarah. Yeah, so I know that she has a lot of knowledge in this area about how to optimize your portfolio and how to build a portfolio that actually is meaningful and communicates the work you've done in a, not only in a good light, but in a light that makes sense. So I do feel that there are some common pitfalls from my experience. There are some common pitfalls to design portfolios for juniors. I'm talking juniors now. I think that many of them like follow this overly templatized structure in which like they just check off the UX activities in the UX process, and then they show, okay, now I build a persona, and then I build a customer journey, and then I did this, and then I did that, and somehow there isn't like this connecting story narrative between all these activities. They just go in there to show that they know the UX process and they're able like to go through these activities. But the key here is to show that how they connect and that they make sense and that you use them where they make sense. So I think that junior designers should definitely be careful with that part. So don't just don't just show that you did all these things, because it may very well be that you'll be asked, okay, so why did you create a persona? And to be completely honest, I've even had interviews where somebody replied, because that's the UX process. And that's not the answer you want to give, or the answer that a hiring manager wants to hear, because that's the process. The answer should be because it helped me validate or explore or communicate or whatever. You have to have rationale behind you have to have a reason behind everything you do in the UX process. So this is one mistake that I see very often. Another mistake is that you maybe focus too much on just showing, like you said, for visual design, it's easier maybe because you just show the visual work. But I see UX designers that do that as well. So they just put this angled phones with the design in an unreadable light. And so that's not the way you want to go about it. If you're showing visual work, it has to be connected to the problem you're solving. It has to like tell the story of how you reached that particular visual solution by exploring the problem and unpacking and understanding the problem. So the point is not to make it, of course, if your portfolio is pretty, then that's great. But yeah, definitely you want to show the visual work in connection with the problem you're solving, and in a way that's visible, not in a very slanted images. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, and another thing is that I don't know, there are many do's and don'ts. We can go into this. I don't want to take too long, but in essence, I think that a junior portfolio, I don't see a hiring manager looking for very necessarily sophisticated, complex projects in a junior's portfolio, because I hope that everybody understands that the junior portfolio will many times be built by, I don't know, sometimes school projects, sometimes volunteer work, sometimes. So it's not going to be like working on this enterprise product that's super complicated and you manage to navigate this very complex ecosystem and problem. It's not going to be like that. But what you need to show is that you understand the UX process, you understand you are able to articulate your decisions. Maybe you've reflected at every step in the process, and you didn't just go mindlessly through the process. You've stopped and reflected and have like the intentionality behind everything you do. And you also show a bit of personality, because for junior designers, at least for me when I was hiring, personality had an important weight in the decision, because you do want to have people that are eager to learn, that are curious, that are willing to like spot their mistakes and say, okay, maybe I will explore that further if maybe I missed something. So you don't want people who are overly defensive or show ego immediately. So yeah, the personality, if you can communicate it, that's also a strong point. I hope that the audience can make something of what I said.
Yes. Yes, indeed. So maybe I can add much more to this question, because my main job is exactly about achieving business results and aligning, UX, design, data, finance, legal, compliance, whatever together. So first of all, Sarah mentioned already that it's not about what you did. It is a very big mistake a lot of people do. They show outputs rather than outcomes. Okay, you did this, you did that, amazing, but why you did it? It's all what makes a difference. Even if you did not achieve business results, but at least you had the right structure, thought process behind it, right metrics, etc. And in my mentorship sessions on ADP List, I see this literally every single time. But because we don't have much time before this one today, I will just give to people here a few links. So this one is, you can see in chat, maybe you guys can watch later. It's amazing talk by Teresa Torres about introduction into modern product discovery. And even if it's about product discovery, this structured approach of this so-called opportunity solution tree you can apply in every field, from your personal life to UX, etc. So you always want to keep in mind some big business objective at the top. Then what are your ideas, opportunities you see which will help you to get there? Then under these ideas, what solutions do you see which would help you to address different opportunities? And finally, what experiments, what these daily tasks you can do in order for you to implement this solution, which will achieve these business results at the end. And something also called Pirate Metrics framework. Usually a lot of UX people, designers, engineers, they don't know about funnels, Pirate Metrics at all. So you guys can Google Pirate Metrics later. It's a very famous universal framework you can use in every type of a business, from small startup, to big, government like enterprise corporation. And it's really about having certain customer journey from acquisition to revenue, which works for business, but also in the same structure works for your customers. Okay, so maybe my last question could be for you, Oyana, today is, what is your definition of greatness?
Wow, this is not an easy question. My definition of greatness? I would say something along the lines of building something that changes people's lives and has a good impact in the world. And that, in a way, is like implicit, if you want, as to what greatness is. I'm now defining greatness in the tech context, if you want, in the product world context. So greatness is something that does good from my perspective. But also on a personal perspective, I think that greatness is something that is meaningful to you or is healthy for you. So I don't want to over fetishize building products that the whole world uses. I also want to talk about how great it is to have a balanced life and to have a job that makes you happy and that doesn't overwork you, and that maybe it's not spectacular in the way we see on LinkedIn all sorts of achievements and I don't know, going like having millions of users and whatever, but it's spectacular in the sense that it's very balanced and it's super healthy. And I think greatness is whatever you feel is great for you, if you want. Does it make sense?
Lovely. Yeah, I hope so for many people. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess different people will have their own definition of greatness, right? Okay, I guess we are pretty much here on time, and I want to give now floor to the audience, so it's people here, and all of the questions. So maybe Winona could help us, with questions we have, and in the meantime, I will scroll all this chat we have today, but feel free now to type your questions if you have anything, and we will try to answer these questions now.
I actually think that we're a little bit over time now, so I wanted to be a little bit more mindful of Viona's time. So maybe we can share the question with her in the email afterwards, and then she can maybe answer some of those on her social account. So make sure you follow her on the social links that I share in the chat. And then if you want to rewatch the session, we will be uploading the recording to our YouTube channel. So make sure you keep an eye out for this. Yeah, Mev, I think we can wrap up.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, I totally agree. So if you have any questions, definitely feel free to share so you know the contact details, where to find. Or maybe I actually can ask you this question, Joanna. Where people can find you?
Yeah, so UX Goodies on Instagram. It's in the chat right now. It's UX Goodies on Instagram. On LinkedIn, it's my name, Ioana Telanu. It's hard to spell. Look it in the in the chat. And also now I've opened my TikTok account. Okay, I'm not strong enough. I said it. I'm never gonna build a TikTok account, and now I'm there because it seems like it's really a nice place for education, which I didn't believe. I had a misconception around it that it's just about having fun and dancing and whatever. But I also see a lot of educational content that's pretty sharp. And so, yeah, I think this is where you can find me. And also, if anybody is interested in exploring the UX bootcamp that I've launched this year, it's called Mento Design Academy. But if you find me on UX Goodies, you'll find everything else from there, my podcast and everything else that I do. So yeah, let's meet on UX Goodies and take it from there.
Lovely. Thanks, Iona. Sounds great. And you can also find me LinkedIn would be the best way, or book a session on ADP List with Matt Ryle. And yeah, I guess we can wrap this talk today. So thanks everybody for joining. Thanks, Winona. Thanks, ADP List, for organizing this amazing session. I hope you guys took a lot away from this session today. And of course, thanks to our speaker today, Iona. You're amazing. Thanks for your time, and see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much,
Yes,
Iona.
bye-bye.
Thank you,
Stay
Matt.
safe.
Bye.